Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking with Joelle McNew, who is president for SafeHorns and longtime Austin resident. And so there's been a lot of activity going on at the UT campus lately that's gotten more attention than it historically has. Not to be confused with there's never been problems at the UT campus by any means. But we wanted to talk about everything that has been going on because it highlights a lot of different things that you've been talking about, but also just some stuff going on with Austin and the county attorney and the district attorney in general. So some very timely topics, it seems like. But we appreciate you taking the time to come be with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So why don't you first just tell us a little bit about you and SafeHorns and what all y'all are up to?
Sure. So SafeHorns is a nonprofit, so we're not affiliated with the UT system. We are a nonprofit that advocates for safety on and around the University of Texas at Austin. A big focus after our history, we started after a brutal rape and murder of a freshman student, Harika Weiser, in April of 2016. And because of that, our focus initially was on campus because that's where that crime took place. That's where the homeless individual had been squatting. And after that, DPS came in and did an assessment. So we really moved our attention to the area where the majority of students live, which is directly off campus. And so that has really been our continued focus, unfortunately, because even though we keep working to make change, many of the issues remain the same, unfortunately. So a lot of what we do is advocacy, really trying to come up with solutions to create positive change, whether it's organizational, meaning how do we get more people out there being guardians of the street, which was why we advocated for the West Campus Ambassadors, which are a cleaning and safety escort for students in the area. As well as one of our biggest projects was a lighting study and to get lighting to meet standard in that area. We just have a lot going on that we're working on. We do a lot of educational things. We're working with Brian Block, the City of Austin nighttime manager, on drink spiking and educating students on the Sip Safely program. So just a lot is going on. So when you mix in some crazy crime that we've had recently, we're just exhausted, honestly. It's like, could we please take a break? Because not only is it one individual causing so much, we still have the other regulars. And it's just a lot. Yeah.
And when you say we, like who all helps you make up SafeHorns? Is it other parents of students? Is it people that live in the neighborhood? Like who all makes up the organization for you when y'all are working on things?
So SafeHorns started, we were all University of Texas parents. When you have a student join a college, many times that campus community has an office on campus for parents. And you give a donation, you get a T-shirt, some swag, and you can join their Facebook page. So it's a private Facebook group. After Harika was murdered, we'd been talking about concerns about crime on and near campus for a long time. And after she was murdered, that page that we were on, they shut down all commenting on safety. So it ended with us and her murder. So immediately, a mom who had an older student, she's also a UT alumna as well as her husband, she immediately started a Facebook page for us to go to. So we operate off of Facebook. So there have been thousands and thousands of members of SafeHorns in our private Facebook page. You either have to be an original member of our organization or you have to be a parent of a current student. We vet everyone strongly, and that is how you can be part of our private page. And then we have our public-facing social media. So I always joke like, oh my gosh, come on Facebook, give us some grant money. The fact that we operate off of Facebook and there's these people all over the country that do different aspects of the work, depending on the call to action of what we're looking for, all Facebook. We recently, because I started a crime prevention consulting business just north of campus, we do now have an office in that location, which has been helpful. So I get a lot of students coming to the office. So it is primarily parents supporting the initiatives, being the donors, supporters, but then we have students that help us as well.
Okay. So something I'm very curious about, because this is something I had not heard yet, and it may have just been my ignorance, but so the incident with Haruka happens and she's tragically killed, and the response on the Facebook page that was run by the university was to shut down comments and not talk about safety at all?
Correct. And to this day, sadly, we host one of the largest national night out in the entire city of Austin that is for students. It is a student-led national night out in the West Campus community. Chiefs from APD, UTPD, fire, EMS, phenomenal UT resources that we support, that we collaborate with. We invite them. Donors across the city help us to have amazing gifts. We have student bands. They will not share that event or any of the events that we host that are free, like self-defense workshops. Yeah. So it's really unfortunate. We've made a lot of progress with UT over the years. That's one thing, though, that has not changed, unfortunately.
What's the logic behind that one? Seems like, I mean, we always, if things are happening, we always want more information. We like more communication. We like all of that. So to shut it down seems counterintuitive. So did you ever get a reason? Like, hey, this is why we didn't want that to happen or whatever?
The reason they said was because we're not affiliated with the university. So if they have a nonprofit or another group or organization, are they going to promote everything that every group is sharing? I don't know.
Interesting.
Okay. It's a little...
But here you are, here SafeHorns is doing their own thing, rocking it out, doing all kinds of stuff, trying to keep, get the information out there.
Sure. So. And we have thousands and thousands of parents that follow us in that private group, as well as our public facing social media, which is SafeHorns. So, we hope that parents do find us, parents who are potentially touring college campuses. We get that a lot. Sadly, I gave a presentation in San Diego in February on SafeHorns and the work that we're doing, and an Aggie raised their hand. I was shocked that an Aggie was there.
So we have one. Christopher is one. I forgot to warn you about that one. Sorry.
We love Aggies. They're so hate. It's all good. It's all good. But she was shocked because part of my presentation during the Q&A, someone had asked me, what do you suggest? And I was honest. I said, there's times where absolutely, when things are intense and we're not seeing anyone helping us except for APD, and that's been one of our best relationships, honestly, for the majority of the time. Things come and go, ebb and flow. It always is changing. But at the time, I said, yeah, absolutely. There's times where people say, hey, my student, we live in a city, but that doesn't happen here. These type of situations aren't happening to them. The crazy crime and direct contact and assaults don't happen here. My student wouldn't be okay with that. And I'm like, okay, well, Aggies, they're cool. They're right up the street. A&M's great. So I think it's important for anyone to really do a lot of research when you're touring a college with your student. Most likely that kid like mine was in a burnt orange onesie as a baby. It is what it is. And that's a lot of us. Regardless of what college it is. But highly, highly recommend wherever you're going, because students are going to be doing that this summer with their parents. You've got to look at the areas where the students live, work, and play directly surrounding that college campus. We can talk more about that later, because SafeHorns, people are using their machine. So people have found us at other colleges. So we're working with University of Georgia at Athens, Ohio State University, University of Minnesota, Berkeley, University of Washington. Now we have Florida coming on board, Gainesville. So, there's a lot going on at college campuses across the country, and doing your research and due diligence in terms of quality of life and impact on societal issues, where they live, work, and play is very, very important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and let's start unpacking some of that related to what we're seeing here in Austin. I mean, the first question that most people, because we get this question a lot for crime across the city, but in particular in the areas that y'all are looking at, West Campus, and where students are really living and walking back and forth to and from classes, all that other kind of stuff. What of the trends that, whether it's in the data or not, because data is definitely one thing, but one of the things that we encounter the most is people's perception of safety and people's whether they feel safe in that area, and sometimes that's hard to quantify. But what have been the trends that y'all have seen over 2016 in the university that you're looking at, and kind of what's caught y'all's attention?
Oh, for sure. Any college campus, we hear it over and over from law enforcement that students don't report. Recently, a couple weeks ago, that was the most feedback we ever had, and we can talk about that in a bit. But yes, the perception of fear and crime is real. And a lot of it, unfortunately, does go unreported. The first and second year, many students, that's when they're shocked. They cannot believe, oh my gosh, I did not know this was going to happen to me. I did not know that someone, we say Micah, mentally ill, chemically addicted individuals living in our neighborhood. They are shocked that they will chase them, harass them. It's beyond panhandling. It's more aggressive behavior. Lots of things going on with that. That is shocking to students. By junior, senior year, students will say, hey, yeah, guys, you just got to watch out for each other, walk together. They all have different little chat groups that they have, whether it's in a friend group, a housing, just Yik Yak is a place where they post a lot of things, giving each other a heads up and warnings. And sadly, by junior, senior year, it's just become, this is how it is to go to UT, where I even was at a stakeholder meeting in our community, and someone who works for a council member who proudly, I was like, why are you here? He does nothing to support us. It was random. And when we were talking about crime, his response was, well, that's just always how it's been. It's just part of going to UT. And I said, you're the problem.
I was like,
the fact that we're desensitizing it and saying that it's okay, and also you're a man. You're a man. You're not an 18-year-old petite 5-foot female that has someone chasing her with a pipe or coming outside of her door of her 18th floor private, secured off-campus student housing, and he's masturbating outside the door. It's like, would that be okay at your house?
Yeah, those are traumatizing things that should never be normalized.
Exactly.
And for people to try to downplay that is always concerning, right? It may very well be the reality that has become effectively the norm, but that doesn't make it okay by any means for it to actually be portrayed as this is just the normal and we shouldn't do anything about it, because there's always areas that we can improve. And it's always one of the things that's always frustrated me, any organization that you go to, is when you ask somebody, it's like, oh, well, why do we do it this way? And they're like, oh, it's just the way that we've always done it. And I'm like, well, that's like the worst answer ever, because we have that means that we're very complacent with where we're at, and we don't even know why we are where we are. We're here, and then we're okay with this. And in particular, like you said, when it comes to people's physical safety, that's never something that, if that's being compromised, we should ever be okay with. Like, there are always ways that we can try to improve. Are you ever going to get rid of crime altogether? No, we all know that's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that you stop. That doesn't mean that you just be like, oh, no, that's just the way that it is. And okay, we'll move on. Especially when you're talking about, these college students, like you said, this is their first real foray into independence. This is your first real exposure to an entirely new environment, really getting into the whole adulting thing, and you're responsible for all this stuff, and you're responsible for your own well-being in all of this. And we're not talking about, in a lot of cases, minor things. You said if someone is chasing you with a pipe, that's not a minor ordeal like that, especially for young adults that are entering into a new lifestyle here of going to college, of getting to classes and studying and all this other kind of stuff. And then you deal with a traumatizing experience like that. That's a lot to go through.
Oh yeah, we were hosting a self-defense workshop a couple weeks ago, and this adorable girl, I'd never met her before. She had never heard of SafeHorns, and she was at our SafeHorns Place, which is a space that we opened right there in the heart of West Campus near the Artists Market to have student events and create community there. And she stayed after, and she got really emotional, and she said, if I would have known that it was like this, I would have never come here. She's like, always, I'm always afraid because I'm chased, or I'm in a situation where someone is there and I'm not sure, are they going to do something? Are they not going to do something? And she said, my job is to go to school. She's first gen. There's a lot of pressure on her to be successful and for her family to support her. It's expensive to live in West Campus, anywhere in Austin. But for students, they're not renting units, they're renting beds. So you may have a bed in a unit of 6 different people, and every bed is $1,500 a month. And you're living in a situation where these fancy high-rises, off-campus student housing, where the physical security is not maintained. So key fobs or garage doors, all the things that they promote that are safe are not functioning properly and repaired in a timely manner. So you wake up with someone sleeping in your gym, in the hallway, people bathing in your pool. There's all these different scenarios of behavior that is shocking and concerning to students. And because we get into that mindset of desensitizing and normalizing it, is where the newer students are questioning, like, really? Is that what we're doing? Is it? It just seems wrong.
Why did I come here for this?
Yes. And I think that's what I wish we were more transparent about it. Some people say, and she got upset also because she said her stepmom told her after an incident where someone actually grabbed her that she was upset. And her stepmom said, you live in a city. That's just how it is. And she said, she didn't let me validate my fear and how I was afraid that what was he going to do to me if I didn't get away. And, sadly, does every city that we should have to be afraid that we're going to be, assaulted or sexually assaulted just walking down the street? I don't know.
And those are, having worked a number of those calls, those are some of the most heartbreaking ones to go to, where you go and it's like I said, it's often younger females that become victims, and there are so many things that they are having to deal with now that, one, they should have never had to have dealt with. And you really do like working those calls where you're trying to help people process the trauma that they've dealt with, while at the same time trying to do a criminal investigation that is by necessity very intrusive into what it is that they just experienced. And like trauma related to sexual crimes is long lasting. And for officers, even when they go and they respond and they're trying to help people work through this, it's very conflicting, even as an officer, to try to help somebody while at the same time having to make them relive a lot of what they just experienced. And if you combine all of that with someone who is a freshman at a university, that is something that will live with them forever. And it is something that I've seen impact their future life choices, where they're like, this was so traumatizing. It's like, I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Like, I don't want to be here. And then it throws them off track of where their life was headed altogether because of college, because of, their career path, whatever. But that one experience can derail life plans quickly. And it's always so hard to work through, to try to even help people to work through. But like you said, validating a lot of that is very important, whereas like recognizing the potential. This could have happened, because we do it in minor ways. Officers do it all the time. Walking down 6th Street, we see, younger adults, whatever, even simple things where you'll see them, they stick a phone in their back pocket. And I've stopped people and I've been like, hey, put your phone in your front pocket. Don't put it in your back pocket. Someone's going to take it, right? Trying to give people just general life guidance, where it's like, these are ways that you can try to avoid things happening to you. But at the end of the day, a lot of times people who become victims, like they don't have a choice in it. Someone else made them a target. Someone else came after them. And in particular with college age adults that are going through all of this, a lot of it is learning. It's life. It is learning. And some of these are very difficult situations that they get put into. Oh, I can't even imagine a lot of the stories that you hear as well, but they're probably very similar to a lot of the calls that officers wind up working. Oh, it does make me curious in what has been the response to what seems to be an uptick in activity. In particular, what people see as the primary contributing factor. Like, what is it that people most deal with? Is it people who are, they're high, they're intoxicated, they're people who have no affiliation with the campus whatsoever, they're folks that are homeless? Like, what seems to be the biggest issue that is contributing to a lot of this feeling of not being safe that students have?
Unfortunately for us, the majority of concern and fear that we hear from are the unhoused population. Mm-hmm. So, that's something that we were advocating back in 2019 when they worked to repeal those ordinances, because we had already had other issues with aggressive panhandling, which that doesn't really happen as much anymore because students don't have money. People don't carry cash. Right. Many times they still don't even ask for food that much because our dumpsters are unlocked. So they pull all the food out from the dumpsters, they tear it apart, they leave it everywhere and eat that trash. Unfortunately, we're trying to come up with solutions for that as well, because students have become a resource. And there's many times, we advocated for the host team. The homeless outreach street team was a solution that we had seen. And one of our members in Houston did a ride along and learned all about their hot team. And that was something that we advocated for, because we were trying to find solutions to the issues that we deal with on a daily basis. And that is a big one. So how do we get them connected to resources? And recently, unfortunately, it is very common. Many times the unhoused are very territorial to different parts of the city. I see them, my office is north of campus at 34th. I'll see them from our habitual offender list coming with a child's bike, which I'm like, I know that's not his bike. He's known for stealing bikes. He's known for breaking into homes. So he always has a collection of stolen property. And I saw him up by my office. So it's like, is it a 3-mile territory, 1 mile? I don't know, but there is a radius, I believe, that they all are pretty territorial. And so with us, that's why the host team was so important, because we want them to be engaged and offer resources. The city has a lot of resources. One of the suggestions I had for the food was to create a sign that I sent to the city to eat healthy and safe versus pulling it all out of the dumpsters, is providing a QR code. Well, I give that example at a presentation that I share across the country about the work that SafeHorns is doing and SEPTED and placemaking and different things that we're coming up with to take action on. And one of the people in the audience pulled up the QR code image off of the slide, and they're like, oh my God, Austin has a lot of food. And I said, yes, we do. But unfortunately, just like host team, we're fortunate to have host team, but the feedback I receive from them is they don't want the resources. So what do we do then? Because we're also not enforcing camping, but yet they're camping, living, squatting throughout our neighborhood. So that's really the biggest issue we hear the most about is the aggressive behavior, erratic behavior, screaming. I'm over there all the time. And students, I'm looking at the students. The individual could be walking by behind them. They're swinging their fists. They may have some type of weapon, a knife, box cutter, a pole, machete, pipe. And the students are looking at me like, oh my God, they're coming up behind me. What should I do? And sometimes I've had to recently stop students and tell them, okay, I need you to change your location, go a different way. There's a guy down here, very aggressive. And it's just crazy. It's crazy that is how it is. And it's very difficult to get anyone to listen to suggestions because, like I said, SafeHorns is always about strategizing. What are solutions that work? Where are they working in other cities? People joke, in 2019, when they were repealing the homeless ordinances, I went out to USC. We love the USC, the University of Southern California safety model of their campus. Their Chief Thomas, retired Chief Thomas of USC DPS, has become my mentor. But then he took me over to LAPD, and I met with their commander of their whole homeless division for LAPD, went to Skid Row, see the work that they're doing. And I'm like, okay, so who's come here from Austin? Oh, well, no one. And I'm like, what? But then you see people in comments when we talk about the hundreds of millions that go towards these issues and trying to solve these issues, hundreds of millions of dollars going into this, seeing little to no results, it seems like. And then people will slam, oh, well, why are you trying that? That was from LA. Some of their programs really would work here, I believe. Just like all cities across the country, people implementing different projects and programs do find success. And to me, okay, why don't we try it? Why don't we see what works? Why don't we have successful outcomes that we're monitoring? Why don't we enforce Prop B? I mean, there's just so many. Why don't we?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yes, it definitely is. I can only imagine on your side, but also like from the officer side, it does get very frustrating when we just keep dealing with the same issues over and over and over again. In my experience, you may go to these other places and you see things, and rarely is everything just like, hey, we're just going to copy and paste everything that you're doing over here. Usually it's a mixture of things. We're like, hey, like this little component looks really good. Like, yeah, some of these other things are probably not going to work too well. But this one little component, like that's a really good idea. We should probably try that one. And then you visit, somewhere else. You go to somewhere else in the country and you find another good idea. And by the time you see what everybody else is doing is when you can kind of assemble this plan of sorts or, changes that may be necessary to find ways to effectively address issues. So I am curious because I haven't really talked to LA about what they're doing. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've seen that it's like, hey, that's probably a pretty good idea. Like, why don't we try that?
One thing that I do love is on Skid Row, many of our unhoused, especially, 6th Street, West Campus, all different parts of the city, you see people that need resources. We know, and I learned from Officer Dion Joseph, LAPD, the Skid Row, the angel of Skid Row. Love him. I learned from him after visiting Skid Row, shocked to find out that you can't just enter a tent. Yeah, that's their private property. Within the tent, there could be weapons, guns, drug paraphernalia, people, human trafficking, sexual assault. So that's why to us, making sure that Prop B is being enforced is important to us. There's a lot of activity happening in these encampments that are not safe for the individuals in those encampments. I also learned from him, under the umbrella of homelessness is a criminal transient population that not only, victimizes other homeless people. I was shocked to find out that homeless people living on the street receive Social Security benefits or different checks, from the state, whatever. They're receiving that money. People, it's like gangs. They know who's receiving any type of benefits, any type of money, and then they come and then they meet up with them to get a payment. So if they don't pay up, then stuff could happen to them. It's total mobster crazy. So there's just a lot going on. It's the lifestyle is, you living on the street is very difficult. So one of the things that I love is on Skid Row, they have the refresh spot. And I did share this as soon as I came back with now Assistant City Manager Stephanie Hayden Howard, because I met her early on because Mikhail Kreiner, who murdered Haruka Weiser, was homeless. So that immediately immersed us in a lot of homeless conversations. You hate the homeless, you hate the poor, on and on and on. And so we took a lot of time to participate in community engagement events and learn about this population. What are the resources? What's working? What's not working? Totally learned about Downtown Austin Community Court, that not every city has a community court. All the resources at Community Court. They do amazing things, but you do not have to accept any resources. So not only do you commit crime many times, but you check that indigent box. So that's a free pass back out onto the street, but yet there's no accountability. So the first thing, let's back up. The refresh spot. Love that. There's a dignity in being clean. The refresh spot is a location on Skid Row. You walk in, you have to be sober. You can't have any weapons or drugs on you. You check in at a table. Yes. You check in at a table, and that table is a resource with the city that can connect you to all resources. So you must check in. Then they got this cool little shaded vibe area, outdoor, cool furniture with shade, and you can hang out there. You can't fall asleep there. You can hang out though. And then they have semi-trailers, 3 and a horseshoe. One is laundry, a massive laundry unit, washers, dryers, all free soap, everything you need to do laundry. The back of the horseshoe is bathrooms. You could eat off those floors. It is so clean. The other is showers. So it's open all day. You just have to come in and connect though. And then the cool part, super cool. Everybody that works there, they are scrubbing those floors. They are social. They have community there. They are paid people who were on Skid Row. So it really changes, the whole outlook of how engagement works. So like I said, there's dignity. There's just great for your mental health to be clean, to have clean clothes, to have snacks, water, all those things. I just love the refresh spot so much. I wish they had one downtown. The Oasis is something that in my mind, I haven't been there because I don't want to be disappointed. We do have flyers outside of SafeHorns place that talk about the Oasis in the Arch parking lot. I'm in my mind again. I'm just visualizing. I wish it was that. But again, it's that whole connecting to resources because much of our issue is repeat habitual offenders living on our street many times. We don't care about their housing status. What we care about is accountability for the crime and the negative impact to quality of life. When the kids report them and they take the time to have APD, we love Baker Sector APD so much. They take the time, the students make the call, they come up, they write the incident report, they do all the things they're supposed to do, and they are re-offended when they see that individual that afternoon or the next day back out there doing the same thing.
Yes.
It's terrible.
It's a huge ordeal.
Yes.
And before we hit on that one though, it's kind of, it is interesting because it sounds like that refresh spot, right? It's where you're it's that two-way participation. This resource is available to you, but in order to have access to this resource, you have to engage in finding effective ways of getting out of the current situation. So it sounds like it's geared more towards helping find those long-term solutions while also providing for short-term needs.
Absolutely. And that's amazing because it does take a long time. We know the data. A lot of people that follow the homeless situation and resources and all these different things that people are doing across the country, there's not a lot that supports positive outcomes. They also have a HEART program. I love the HEART program. The HEART program, once again, though, it's an action that leads to accountability. So if you do have repeat habitual offenders, you have the ability to go to attend a HEART program event. Again, you have to connect with resources. You have to follow through to remove those citations. But again, here in Austin, if we don't have that accountability, if we're just saying, oh yeah, no, you can go. And we have 200 offenses.
Yes.
And we repeat offend. And even downtown Austin Community Court, they have case management. They have work programs. They have all these resources, alcohol, mental wellness, all these things that are so awesome. But if you don't want them and you check that box of indigent and you continue to criminally offend and reoffend communities over and over and over, you're just going to repeat that pattern because no one is saying to you at some point, I mean, what is it? Do we need to get to 250 offenses? Yeah, and in our case, murder. We believe our threshold is murder. Currently, that's what we're feeling.
Yeah.
So sadly, that's where we're at. And unfortunately, do we truly want to help them? The hundreds of millions that we're pouring into all these resources, do we truly want to help them? And when we're seeing this criminal activity and behavior over and over and over, I'll never forget, we had a meeting with the commissioner and Howard, and we had the county attorney and district attorney because we wanted to bring them together in the room with West Campus stakeholders a couple of years ago so that they could hear from them firsthand that, yeah, these are just quality of life crimes. What are you talking about? And I'll never forget when we were bringing up a situation with a business right there on the drag, an amazing group of individuals just trying to go to work every day to provide for their family. And they had a criminal trespass violation, theft, and then assault. And when you look at it, though, what pops up is criminal trespass.
Because that was all that they prosecuted.
So the response was, so the response was, it's just criminal trespass. Why is that a big deal? I'm like, because that's just started the story. The criminal trespass is a crime. And when you keep violating, I have so many businesses on the drag that tell me they come in, violate the criminal trespass, then they steal something, then they assault them, or they throw everything around in the store. And now they're like, but they're going to come back. So we just don't even call the police anymore because it's scary. Yeah. What are they going to do?
Yeah. And it's a trend that we see all over the city, unfortunately. But we know that the way that the county and the district attorney have been operating is, for anyone that doesn't know, the county attorney prosecutes misdemeanors and then the district attorney prosecutes felonies. So typically most people would consider the misdemeanors to be the lower level crime. And what both groups are doing, and sometimes doing across their offices, to one another, sort of, it's mostly the DA though, is that we'll have that exact same instance happens all over the city where there's someone who has a criminal trespass notice because they were on the property, they were stealing things, they were masturbating on the property, whatever the case may be. And the business owner is like, we don't want this person back here because they're costing us money. They're, having an impact on other people and they're assaulting other people. So we'll issue a criminal trespass notice. The person comes back and that exact same thing where they're intoxicated, they're trespassing again when they're not supposed to be there. They steal something and then they go on to assault somebody. And so we'll file multiple different charges. We'll be like, hey, all four of these offenses exist. We're going to file for each four of these offenses. They all get referred to the county attorney. And then the county attorney decides, we're going to drop these other three and we'll only do it under the criminal trespass, or it was handled through the public intoxication. And so the bar for accountability is so low that it skews a lot of the statistics. Where just like you said, oh no, it's quality of life. It's a property crime. It's not a crime against a person. Well, that's because y'all dropped everything else. Like, we're clearly just ignoring that part. Or even worse is where we'll have individuals that are arrested for both misdemeanors and felonies, and the felony should take priority. But here they do the opposite, where we'll drop the felony. The DA will drop the felony and just refer everything else to the county attorney for them to handle under the misdemeanor charge. And so it skews the levels of accountability. You wind up in that, exactly what you're talking about, that revolving door where we just see people over and over and over again. And there was one instance, I don't remember if they were arrested, if it was around campus, but I do recall an incident last year where they had an individual who had mental health diagnoses and crises and issues that needed to be dealt with. And I believe it was a felony level offense, but there was a plea deal effectively that was done. And as a condition of that, the individual had to take either a Lyft or an Uber to psychiatric emergency services. And it was an assault of some sort. I just can't remember if it was a felony level assault or a misdemeanor level assault, but they had assaulted somebody. And so the conditions of the release were, hey, you can't assault anybody, and you need to self-transport yourself over here to psychiatric emergency services to go get help. And then they just release them. And I was like, how does that solve anything if the person who is in crisis, you said, hey, go fix yourself, instead of actually connecting them and having the accountability aspect? Where it's like, if you don't get these services, well, then we have to pursue the criminal side. We don't want to, but we have to pursue the criminal side if you're not going to take care of yourself or go get help, or you're not going to follow through with court order treatment or whatever. There's just no accountability that happens. And it's these businesses, it is these students, it is Austinites who suffer at the end of the day because prosecutors are not taking this seriously, and we're finding any way except for actually prosecuting and holding people accountable as a means to address the issue. It's wild to me. It is suspending the laws of reality and common sense here that it's just so hard to understand. So, I mean, did you get any sense from the county attorney, the district attorney in that meeting or anything that tells you like why they think this is effective, or what's going on, or why they're doing any of this, why they think this is the most appropriate path?
No. So I was just happy. I was just happy that I was in a room that I encouraged others to come, and also law enforcement to come to this meeting because they needed to hear it firsthand. You know, I mean, we're sitting here talking about it. People hear it. I'm, our friends at KLVJ are sharing what we're dealing with also. You know, people are talking about it in all different parts of the city and Travis County as a whole on these types of crimes. And it was good and validating, sadly, I have to admit that.
Not the validation you wanted.
Yeah, that to be in a room and to have them hear it firsthand and how they're trying to justify it. And, you know, the same excuse, oh, well, we can't jail them all. We don't have mental health. That's not our fault. Okay, there's things that they could do, though. And if they truly cared about results and turning people's lives around, or is it a 5150 hold? You know, there is state law. So we're talking about someone who's a threat to many, many individuals that we see that the students are referring to, that it's very concerning, erratic, physically, assaults, things like that, where, we wonder they're a threat to themselves or others. And students ask me if they defend themselves, would they go to jail? I said, probably so, for assault. Hard to say.
Yeah.
That's a difficult question. But what we asked too, though, is what about Judge Herman? What is happening with involuntary holds? What are we doing for these people? I talk to people at Travis County because I'm always trying to learn,
Sure.
What can we do? What are solutions? What are options? What's really happening out there? And at the Travis County Jail, there are people that do that work. If we can get some of these individuals stabilized on their medication or just getting stabilized at all, that potentially have hope for them to turn their life around, then why aren't we prioritizing that? This whole broad brush of, nah, that's not that serious.
Yeah, we're just not going to do anything.
No. Yeah. And then we end up with this situation we had a couple weeks ago, you know, and he's not even unhoused. He did check indigent, which we're curious about that because the property that he lives in, the cheapest rent there is $1,100. He also has a car. So sure, you know, my lifestyle's too expensive for me too. And I'm still, you know, going to Target and buying the cute little things at the front that I don't need. Yeah. But you know what I mean? So it's like, it's such a broad brush of criminal activity and behavior and these lower level crimes not taken seriously, no accountability, for sure making them more emboldened to come right back and reoffend. That recently with us in the history of SafeHorns, really. So when Haruka Weiser was murdered on campus in 2016, sadly in 2017, we're about to come to the 8th year anniversary of Harrison Brown being murdered on campus and 3 other individuals being assaulted and injured, but survived their injuries. And that was by a student. That student is in a mental health facility. And if he is found to be competent one day, he will walk free with no criminal history, which is disgusting.
It's crazy to think that can be the case.
It's insane. I just am sad because I'm sure it will happen. But in that situation, it was much different in terms of a serious crime on campus because that was in the middle of the day. The individual where we've had a lot of recent incidents with, he was a UT student. And a lot of this goes back to that student, Kendricks White, that murdered Harrison. You know, he had mental health issues. He was doing a lot of different things that weren't brought up in trial that we know about. So a lot of questionable things that brought him to that place to make those decisions. And it is concerning because, again, what are we doing to get people the help they need, but ensure that everybody else is safe? And that's where the involuntary commitment that we question, why isn't that a tool that's being used? What is the excuse that they find acceptable in their head over and over again? How do they sleep at night? Honest to God, I'm so curious about this because I'm about crime prevention.
Sure.
So the fact that the DA spent $65,000, I heard, on his own physical security right. Improvements at his personal home, when we have Resolution 184 from 2019 to improve safety with cameras and other technology to improve quality of life for students. That has never been, there's no response to that. There's no follow through with that. We keep asking, but yet you're still letting them out to reoffend. Is it going to be murder? And then are we all going to be upset for about 2 weeks? And then, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and it sadly, like you said, it's a trend that we have seen where I've had cases where a individual, you go to make an arrest and the individual becomes violent and then winds up assaulting an officer. And pretty much any officer that has been assaulted here in Austin probably has a very similar story where that happens. And then you get the call from the assistant district attorney that says, well, he's mentally incompetent, so we're going to dismiss everything. I was like, well, now wait a minute. So let's follow the logic here. A guy is out there as being violent, has likely assaulted other people, and oftentimes we've arrested them for that. And then they assault an officer, and so they are very willingly engaging in violence. And we know this, and we know they have a mental health condition that's likely a contributing factor to all of this. So we arrest them because they've committed a criminal offense, and then they're found to be mentally incompetent. And our solution, instead of restoring competency and ensuring that they follow through with whatever treatment restored that competency so that they don't reoffend, instead of going that route, we've decided, the DA, county attorney, whoever, has decided, we have compassion, and so we're going to release them out there in the exact same condition that caused them to assault an officer, anybody else, students, all these other folks. Do we not think that they're likely going to assault somebody again? So it's almost willing ignorance at this point, where we know the prosecutors, they know what the outcome is going to be. If you release somebody who was mentally incompetent when they committed the crime and is still mentally incompetent now that you have dismissed the crime, they're probably going to commit the same crime again. Like, there's nothing that is intervened to stop them from offending. Oh, and to that, let's talk a little bit about what you're referencing, what's become very popular in the last couple of weeks, or rather gotten a lot of attention, is one particular individual that has committed a number of assaults already in this month alone, and has quite the rap sheet for the last year, including terroristic threat and various other things. Amen Labidi, and it has become a news story quite a bit lately. But I'd like to hear from your perspective, one, why it is that this particular instance, because unfortunately, like you're citing all these examples, this type of situation isn't exactly new. Like, this isn't a revolutionary thing that, oh my gosh, we've never seen this before. It's just getting a lot of attention now. So one, why is that? Is the first question. We'll start there. Why do you think it is that this one, even though it's happened in the past and this goes on constantly, why is it getting attention now as compared to everything else that's been going on? Is it just the time, the situation? It's hard to tell sometimes.
I think it's because of his presence. I think because he was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
He's wearing a motorcycle helmet, that he's playing loud music in the through his helmet, so you can hear loud music. And he was in so many different places, whether it was on campus, off campus. Students have a big Greek life event called Westfest. He was at some Westfest events. I think because of his behavior and activity in so many different locations, immediately got a buzz about, okay, have you seen this guy? Did anything happen to you? So there was a lot of chatter about him because, number one, they recognized him when people started sharing what he was wearing. And then there were so many victims of his behavior in such a short period of time, where a lot of our habitual repeat offenders that we track really based upon repeat offenses in the area, it could be maybe 2 to 3 a month, where in this situation, we probably have over 30 within a 2-week period, and obviously weren't all reported. Right. But once it started happening, it just took on this whole life of its own. And what made it worse was we didn't know who he was in the beginning. So students were sharing pictures of him. We did a beautification project in the 24th Street Artist Market. One of the students at that event that was helping us, they're like, hey, do you know about the guy in the motorcycle helmet? He steals things and he thinks he's like Robin Hood. He says he's like stealing for people who need it, which it turns out it was him. But
it's like I'm stealing things from people that need it, which is me.
Yeah, I need it too.
Sounds about right.
But anyway, so it was just interesting because that was the first time we had heard about him was through that student. Then students started posting pictures. And then people started chattering in our own group of, hey, has any of your students had an incident, a physical altercation with someone in a suit and a motorcycle helmet? And we're like, no. So we started paying attention. Then on Tuesday morning, April 8th, I believe is the date, that is when he assaulted 4 people on Guad. The fourth took a long time. Initially, the report was 3. We only knew about the fourth because that parent is in our group. He was injured. He had to go to the emergency room. So it was very serious for that family. He had a concussion. He had all these different things going on. That was the first crime that we heard from this individual that people had been talking about. So he had these 4 incidents that morning. Then he was released. So that evening he was up, that was on Guad, kind of in the center area of Guad. And that evening, once he was out, then we had reports of him immediately, lots of chatter again. Hey, there's a guy hitting people when you walk by him. Everyone in the area, he's just hitting them. And then we heard that someone body slammed him. People were calling the police. The police came. He was running across the street. So that was for criminal misconduct and fighting. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until after that we heard that someone was in self-defense, slammed him to the ground.
Yeah.
So then the next morning, we still have no idea who this is. Then the next morning, I'm checking with our officers and confirming that we do have reports that people actually are calling the police because crime data matters.
Yes.
And it's very difficult. And again, we didn't know at this point because it's early on. So we're like, what the heck? This is that guy that everyone. So now more pictures are popping up of him and different social media avenues that students share. Oh my gosh, I saw him being mean to people at Chick-fil-A in the Union or Panda Express. And so they're talking about all these different incidents. And it wasn't until Wednesday morning that the name came out. And I'm like, oh, that name sounds familiar. So I did a little search. Once I saw his face, I immediately just freaked out. I could not believe that this was an individual that we had learned about from September. So in September, in West Campus, we have a stakeholder group that SafeHorns is part of. It's primarily developers, businesses in the area. Some of the businesses on the drag attend our meetings, and one of them showed up to our stakeholder meeting very frazzled, and she's like, oh my God, something terrible happened. Did you hear what happened? I'm like, no. So she's telling me that an individual had come into her store. He was wearing a backpack on the front of him, a backpack on the back of him. This was in September of 2024. He had earpiece, like headphones. He was talking to someone. So, she's like, what is he doing? So he comes into the store, which is a boutique of female apparel and accessories. And he's really aggressive asking for Wi-Fi. She's like, what? And so it's UT students who work for her, which is common along the drag to have UT students that are employed by all these businesses. And they're like, no, we don't have Wi-Fi. So he became very aggressive. He said he's going to blow up their store. And so she's telling him to get out.
Yeah.
And he's screaming, they're screaming and he's aggressive and he's not right. And she's like, you got to go. She's like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anything. Now she has things. But she's like, I wasn't sure what to do, but he left. So then he proceeded to go to the next business, again, asking for Wi-Fi. Then he proceeded down to a leasing office where they believed, again, very erratic, confrontational, aggressive, that he had a gun. So they thought that he was going to shoot them. So that is where the terroristic threat came into play, but he had no costume on, nothing,
Just a guy wearing backpacks.
Just a guy wearing backpacks, young, looked like he could be a student or a little older, not sure, but very bizarre, very concerning. Well, that was right before we were hosting our National Night Out event. I have known this woman, this business owner. She went to UT. She has had this business on the drag for 20 years. never have I seen her frazzled ever before. She and her employees, they have seen everything. Oh my God. One of our kids, the mom, she's like, oh my God, my daughter worked there. And the men, they're always standing outside the window and they're masturbating and they're screaming and they're penetrating the windows to get the girls' attention. And just crazy things have happened there where she's sadly, again, part of the area that you just get used to it. But this was different for her. She truly believed that they were going to die.
Yeah.
And so our national night out was the very next week. And it was the first time ever. We've always held national night out for students in West Campus. We were giving President Hartzell an award for implementing the West Campus Ambassador Program. He had already accepted. Now I'm wondering, okay, who is this person? Is it a real threat? We've never looked at what should we do, because National Night Out is all first responders. Who would come and hurt all of us when they see all the police cars, fire trucks, EMS, everyone there?
Sure.
So I'd never really thought of the safety in this open area where we host the event with higher level parking garages where things could potentially happen. Are we setting ourselves up for students to be injured, potentially the president? Because when we did our research on this individual, we found that he had a criminal trespass for refusing to leave the president's office back in April of 2024. Now it's September. So we thought, okay, he was a student from 2020 to 2024.
Something's going on.
What snapped in him? Was it during the protest times? Was there a situation that occurred that maybe he didn't graduate because of something that happened and now he's unstable, he needs help, and he's acting out in very, very concerning, aggressive ways. So when we realized he's that individual, I mean, because when National Night Out, I mean, I was calling everyone. Should we cancel? What should we do? You know, I couldn't sleep. I was so worried that, are we ensuring that even our law enforcement officers, I'm always worried about you guys and something happening, that are we setting ourselves up to have a serious incident? And I was assured that it would be fine. We didn't have the media come for the first time ever. Everybody came. We had an amazing time, but I was just sick over it about potentially what could happen. And so here we are now, a couple weeks ago, and this is our guy.
Yeah.
And we couldn't believe that when he was arrested and released, he was released as indigent, so he had zero bond for those assaults. But what was concerning was his bond from the terroristic threat. One of the conditions was he has to stay away from those individuals that work at those businesses, but he also has to stay 200 yards from the business, which would be the area where these assaults were happening.
Yeah. So it's like, clearly he did not listen to that one. Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet he's back out there. So then he was released again, assaulting people all day. People talked about him trying to run them over in his car. Again, same outfit, motorcycle helmet in the car. Just bizarre behavior, very aggressive behavior, targeting students and really anyone, because we did have people reach out who are non-UT affiliated, older adult people in the community that he had targeted. We had students who said that he targeted them with racial things. And a student that said she was Muslim, another student LGBTQ, that they felt like it was hate speech and that's why he targeted them. It was just all over the place, but it was constant physical assaults as well. And then it wasn't until, and then again, a man said, what does he look like? On Twitter, he reached out, what does he look like? I posted the mugshot. He immediately said, that guy assaulted me today. He just totally punched me. I don't know him. That night is when he then assaulted the students, and he's currently still in jail because of that, which honestly was shocking.
Yeah, but also indicative, like it should have never gotten that far. Like the fact that it has wandered so far down, so many people had to be assaulted before finally we're like, well, maybe this guy shouldn't be out. Maybe we should actually hold him because obviously he's not following through with the conditions of his release and all this other kind of stuff. But either there can be a myriad of different things going on with it, but it certainly seems like a big contributing factor is the fact that judges are probably not appropriately taking into consideration the past. We're taking everything just on face value. And then the fact that the county attorney is, if they are getting these low bonds, the county attorney is not stepping up and being like, whoa. We've got like, X many pending cases with this guy. You need to hold on to him while we work through all of these because it's numerous different assaults over a short period of time. They need to be taking these bonds more seriously. They need to be taking the history, the series, the actual public safety threat a lot more seriously because it has a dramatic impact not only on people's sense of safety and their feeling of safety, but also their willingness to report things and officers' ability to do things when we arrest somebody. And sadly, it happens quite a bit, where we can arrest somebody, and then within that officer's same shift, the person is released. I have had it in the past, and granted, some of them are longer shifts. You work a 16-hour day. Like it's a long day, but where you can arrest somebody in the morning, and then in the evening, you're at the jail, and you see the guy that you arrested in the morning walking out. And you're like, wait a minute here. You're like, how did everything get fixed out, resolved? And we're like, this guy's fine, good to go. In such a short amount of time, and especially when you deal with these types of crimes. If they are assaults, if they are crimes against persons, that's something that should absolutely be taken more seriously, and it just isn't. And we see it time and time again. We have had so many examples this year where something has happened. We start pointing it out and being like, hey, this guy who was out on bond and killed somebody just had their bond reduced. And then all of a sudden, we were in the process of raising that. Well, you only did it after you were called out on it. And we see too many of these instances where it becomes a big enough issue and is now garnered attention. Now we'll do something about it. Now the county attorney, now the DA, now judges are like, oh yeah, we should probably do something about that. Versus just maybe doing the right thing in the first place and preventing numerous other people from becoming victimized because of their lackadaisical attitude towards enforcing the law, which it's their job to do, which becomes extremely confusing why we have to fight so hard to get people who are elected to enforce the law to actually enforce the law and not let their own voters, citizens, constituents become victims time and time again. It's very confusing, very perplexing, but it's a extremely prevalent problem.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was so frustrating. And like you said, I think because, again, since Harrison Brown was murdered 8 years ago, we have never had so much chatter from students, so many students following us. We started sharing the information also. So we were sharing what students were telling us, reporting to us. We were sharing the crime incidents. We were sharing the history, and then we were sharing the mugshot because you had the description of him and his outfit of the suit and the helmet, but then other students were assaulted without that. So it was the first time in a long years where we've had so many students sharing information with their friends, sharing alerts to be careful, watching out for each other, to make sure you report. We had students that were coming forward. What do? I was assaulted by him and I didn't report. So encouraging people, just like the man I mentioned who was sucker punched by him, please report, file a police report, because we wanted him to have a mental health evaluation. Obviously, from April, from the president's office with the criminal trespass at UTPD to the time where he had the terroristic threat, he has some serious issues going on. Now he's been out there this whole time and something has escalated him again where now we have all these reports of crimes, physical crimes against people, whether it was him physically assaulting them or trying to run them over in his vehicle, that I swear, I told KLBJ that honestly, if KLBJ hadn't highlighted this and all the students started elevating it and sharing their concerns, that I really don't believe he would have been held where he is now. Because after those crimes on Thursday, I thought he would be released again. But I think it got enough attention that they did hold him, and it's sad too, because the county attorney and the district attorney, then they, of course, commented on this because they were getting pushback. We were encouraging our community to reach out to them to hold him. We wanted a mental health evaluation, and we wanted to make sure that there was accountability for that bond condition violation, which when you search it, sounds like it's a problem, but apparently not to our system here in Travis County. But was it going to lead to someone being murdered? So we were shocked. But then, we think, okay, good. Now it's got the attention. You're holding him. Let's get that mental health evaluation. And then sadly, the comment from the county attorney, I believe it was the county attorney's office, not the district attorney. I'd have to verify. But the snarky comment that maybe we need to take a little visit to the university administration office and teach them about criminal law and how it works. And it's like, okay, our interim president, Jim Davis, went to Harvard.
Yeah.
I think he knows. I think he can figure it out.
Yeah.
And the fact that our students are being recriminalized because you're letting him out with accountability, just like other people. And that's what I told people. I said, unfortunately, he's one of many. And sadly, are we waiting for someone to be murdered? And what is it going to do for us to change this? Because the challenge for so long has been they hate the police. The police, they don't come, they don't hold them accountable, they don't do their job. And it's a lot of education on our part to explain, no, they're doing the right thing. I mean, Baker Sector, oh my God, love them. They've been working so hard. They've been working for our commander, our lieutenant. Everybody's been working so hard as much as they can with what they have to really support community safety, education, like I said, ensuring that students are reporting, that we get those statements. But then it leaves their ability, they're not controlling the situation. They did their job. So the fact that they're right back out there, I'm like, guys, this isn't the police. It's not law enforcement's fault.
Yeah.
It is now out of their hands. And that's the part that is broken.
Yeah. It is a tough spot. We get those questions all the time. It's like, well, you arrested him, but then like he was just right back out. And it's like, unfortunately, that's well beyond our control. Like officers go out there, they make arrests, they go to enforce the law, but whether someone stays in jail, gets prosecuted, all that other kind of stuff is not up to us. Those are decisions that we aren't asked about, consulted about, none of that. We go out there, we enforce the law. If we make an arrest, we have to write all the facts down and then present that to a judge, and then a judge signs off on it. And then from there, it's in prosecutors' hands. And like we still play a support role if they go to prosecute those things, but if they opt not to prosecute things, or they want to decline, or they dismiss, or a judge gives a low bond, or all of that, unfortunately, like that's not anything that we have a say in. But also, they don't go out and see these people that are victims in the moment of crisis. It's always officers. So to a degree, officers catch the frustration from everybody else because, when you wear the uniform, you are the symbol of, criminal justice, of the government, and all this other kind of stuff. And when people call 911, we go to them, right? You can call a judge all you want. They're not coming out to see you anywhere in the middle of the street where someone's doing something to you. It's only us. So we're the only ones that really catch a lot of that brunt of people's frustrations, which we completely understand. Like we understand, and when people do take it out, more often than not, it has absolutely nothing to do with the officer. We understand that. It's just people are so frustrated with the system, and there's nobody else to take that frustration out that's as readily available as law enforcement is. But there is a huge education aspect where it's like, hey, this is not, unfortunately, it's not us. Like we can go out there and we can enforce all day long. We can arrest people constantly. But then if they get constantly released, like then we're just stuck in this same pattern, this same cycle where we're trying to intervene, but there's no follow through by other people whose job it is to make sure that we intervene. And that just makes everything so difficult for officers to do their job, for people to feel safe, for the law to be enforced, for it to be respected, for people who are in crisis to get treatment, for people who are constantly committing crime to be held accountable. Like, it is a broken system because there is a very weak link in it right now. And that makes everybody suffer, really, at the end of the day, is what happens, but nobody more than those who are becoming victimized. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we said, it's been going on for years. People initially, when SafeHorns first started, they're like, oh, well, what is it that you want? And when are you going to go away? And we thought too, so naive. We thought, oh, if we come together and we express what's really happening, then they'll fix it. And then we'll be done.
And then we can go away and go back to other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And here we are 9 years later, and
busier than ever.
And it's just insanity, honestly. And like I said, you can go on Nextdoor, because we do get media attention. It's because of the population that we're dealing with also. Like you said earlier, we have the most densely populated area, one of the top most densely populated areas in the entire state of Texas, West Campus. They're 18 to 23 years old, primarily in that area, living away from home for the first time. Their job is to go to school. Many of them work multiple jobs to pay for that high rent. And then their life is negatively impacted by the different crimes and situation going on over there on a daily basis. It's not just at night. Even though we worked very hard, we worked for 7 years to advocate and get lighting to meet standard in that neighborhood. Right now we're pushing so hard because the city wants to expand that area. They want to create more density. They want to put buildings on the drag, in that area taller than the Frost Bank building. And we're saying, whoa, before you create more density, why don't we make the neighborhood overlay a model of a community that is dense, walkable, and close proximity to the university, that is housing young people? Ideally, it's great to have the students live close by. But again, if there's no oversight, if there's no prioritization of safety, and our only call to make is to APD, to our Baker team. Baker sector is huge.
It is. I believe it's the largest sector in the city.
But it's unrealistic to think that, in the current situation, that we can have people over there all the time. Yes, ideally, we would love to see people on foot patrol, bike patrol, to be in the neighborhood more frequently and visible, because crime is happening both day and night. Again, it's a lot of part 2 crimes. So some of those crimes do seem low level, but it's the ones that are going unreported, the aggressive assaults and attacks, and just them squatting and breaking into their housing and not having that oversight of this area, which is so scary to think of them creating even more density when we as a nonprofit had to advocate to bring lighting even to standard there. It was so dark. That was one of the first concerns that students have. So that's why now we're really just digging deep on SEPTED and crime prevention through environmental design, trying to get that added to code. When I'm on Nextdoor and reading all the different crimes for people, I'm like, oh my gosh, does anyone have an HOA? What are you doing? Can we talk about SEPTED and what that means? The acronym is CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, is a way of looking at the built environment to reduce crime, reduce the fear of crime, activate spaces. We're trying to do that in the artist market. Students don't even know that the 23rd Street Artist Market is a true market. They think it's a place you walk through and keep your head on pivot. And for our unhoused neighbors, they think it's a place to live, and defecate, and do all sorts of bad things. And, so we're trying to focus on that and model an example of that. That's why we opened SafeHorns Place. That was a crime hotspot in our area that was a homeless resource that brought a lot of crime, criminal activity, drugs, overdose, sexual assault. Students, finding dead bodies in our alleyway is always concerning,
yes.
but sadly common. It's hard for our unhoused population to live on the streets in the conditions that they live on. But what do we do when they refuse resources? And what do we do as communities? And that's why we believe we've got to empower. I love ACM Garcia. He's familiar and knowledgeable of CEPTED and CEPTED principles and programs. So I'm really hoping that we can start pushing out more CEPTED so that we can empower people in their neighborhoods of what it means, what they can do proactively, how we can educate them to collectively implement CEPTED principles to make our community safer. So we're pushing for that in code. We're modeling it ourselves, picking up a lot of human waste over there and trash and garbage. And it's not fun, but no one else is doing it. Right. So, removing graffiti on a daily basis. It's a lot of effort, but collectively, it's a huge return and improved quality of life.
Yeah.
So that is what we're working on now.
Yeah. That's all super important stuff. And the other thing that I do want to go back and hit on real quick is what you said about making sure that people report things, because there is a narrative out there that when you look at the statistics, crime is going down. It's like, well, actually, likely not. And this is where criminal justice statistics get difficult, is how do you account for how many people, as a result of everything that's going on and the lack of prosecution and the lack of accountability and all this other kind of stuff, the people that don't report things that they should have reported things because they've become so frustrated, they're like, it's not even worth it. Right? Like we have seen that. People have gotten frustrated at times with APD response times where our staffing has reached levels where our response time is extremely prolonged in some cases. And so people just cancel calls. It's like, never mind, I don't need you anymore. Right? Like it's already done, over with, whatever. And so they just cancel things. And so something goes completely unreported that probably should have been reported. How many people are de-incentivized from reporting things because they have no confidence that anything's going to happen with it, even if we do make an arrest, because people get out and they see that the person that was just arrested for assaulting them just got out and assaulted somebody else. It's like, well, then why should I report it? Because clearly it didn't do anything. There's so many things right now at play that I think prevent, and from talking to people one-on-one, I have talked to plenty of people where they say, like, no, I didn't. We'll ask them, like, well, did you call? Or they'll say, like, oh, this has happened before. Like, well, did you call? So it's like, no, I didn't think you'd come, or I didn't think anything would happen, so I didn't call and report it. So we talk to those folks all the time, and we know that it's out there. The question really is how much of a factor it plays. My suspicion is that it's a pretty significant factor. Right? It's not the end-all, be-all, but I don't think crime as a whole is down, really. Reporting is down. It's a big part of what we see, and that's why the perception and the feeling of safety, when you talk to most people, especially in downtown, West Campus, and certain other parts of the city, a lot of people will say they feel less safe now than they did 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago. Not just because of increases in very visible unhoused populations that often are violent, but also because there's a lot going on that just goes unreported because it's become the norm. It's not. We have new norms now that we think it's just not worth calling. So I think it's a very good reminder. If something happens, people should still report it. There may be alternative means of doing it. iReportAustin.com is a website that you can still go report something, even if it happened after the fact. Reporting it to make sure that the department, that the county, the district attorney, judges are aware this is what's going on in these areas is extremely important. On top of everything else that's going on, if we don't have the reports, if you don't have that baseline statistic of these are the types of crimes that are occurring in these areas, which we do through reporting, it makes it difficult to try to continue to follow on addressing those issues later on down the road. So all that really to say, please report things. If you're out there, something happened, Don't think like, oh, well, like there's nothing going to happen with it. I'm not going to do anything. Report it. We can't guarantee something's going to happen with it. What happens with the county attorney, with prosecutors, with judges, that's beyond our control. But if you report it, at least you're contributing to us knowing what's going on across the city, and in particular areas like the campus and student housing areas, all very important. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a huge thing that we're constantly pushing out, especially in this situation recently with so many people impacted by one individual. I think it was really eye-opening because then students would say, oh, did he look like this? And they're like, no. Oh, that's that other guy. So it really created a lot of conversation, number one, of awareness, sharing important information, watching out for each other, but the impact of not reporting, because students have now recognized, okay, like I said, there's got to be over 30 for sure. The majority of them not reported, that they're saying, oh my gosh, what if I would have reported, would have made a difference? And I'm like, yes, please. Yeah. In terms of the data collection, sadly, that's what it is. But how do we make an impact? And I don't even know who the oversight is. I guess the voters for the county attorney and district attorney, sadly. Yep. I'm told there's no true oversight of them, that the voters who elected them believe that what they're doing is okay, apparently. If they want to come over and hang out in our area and walk around with us, I would love to share with what is acceptable, apparently, by them. But the data is helpful to us because it really shows the negative impact to quality of life. And like I said, they're part 2 crimes. So I don't care who you are. If you say, oh, well, that's not that serious, it's not like it's a felony or something. If you're the victim of a crime, it impacts you.
It doesn't matter what level it is.
In a densely populated area like we have, that's going to be even more dense. I mean, we have already over 36,000 students living over in that area. We have students from UT, ACC, University of Austin. We have some students from Texas State University that are now living in our area. It's extremely densely populated. And if we don't have them reporting crime, then there's no record of what's happening there. It's not giving us a picture of the types of offenses, the things that we should be educating them about potentially. Is it burglary of vehicle? Is it their bikes being stolen, their scooters stolen? Is it recently where a girl said that she woke up and an unhoused man was crawling into her bed? He had broken into their apartment last week and was crawling into her bed, and he was incoherent, drooling. And she said she'd never been so scared in her entire life, where we had male students last week who said that they woke up in the morning and an unhoused man was leaving their apartment through a closet that he apparently had been sleeping in,
These are not good things.
No, and they have to be reported because many of the situation that we have when we're doing the research and data, cases are dismissed, rejected. They're repeat offenders that we're following. Many of them are registered sex offenders. It is very scary that we don't want students or anyone in Austin to live in fear, obviously, but reporting crime and providing that factual information is very, very important. And we're just grateful for APD and all the work that they've been doing. It's been a lot in our area recently, and sadly, it's difficult because we're not getting the support for the people doing the work, whether we need the mental health resources or we need people to be held accountable for the criminal behavior that is impacting us. And something's got to give. Like I said, at this point, we all just keep thinking, okay, we're waiting for someone to die, and whose student is it going to be?
Yeah. And why? And the question that lingers in everyone's mind is, why does it have to get to that point, right? That's what everyone's expecting. Like, oh, maybe that's going to be the thing that finally triggers action and change. But why does it have to get to that point, to such an extreme, before change is essentially forced at that point? Because it'll be such an overwhelming response. The opportunity is here. The opportunity is here to change things. The opportunity is here to treat this problem seriously within prosecutors, judges, everyone that is, APD, everyone that's trying to address this issue. Like you said, if collaboration would actually occur, then it's possible to solve things. But everybody has to be willing to do that. And there's a couple weak links in that process right now. And I know I've talked to a lot of the Baker officers and, everyone within the department, and they truly appreciate when they have groups like you and SafeHorns that are willing to work with them, that are willing to help us identify issues and figure out ways like, hey, how can we try to best address this? Even though we can't guarantee what other people are going to do, here's what's within our control here. How can we help? And working together, because ultimately that's the goal. That's the way that we will solve problems is by working together, seeing it from everybody's different aspects, the people that are being impacted by it, the people who are trying to solve it, the people who have the tools to solve it, and the people who have, the resources and the equipment to follow through on everything that's going on from a criminal justice aspect, from mental health, from, getting people housed, to a variety of different aspects. There are so many resources out there, but yet we still are not able to come to a solution that helps address everything holistically. And it's disappointing, but from the department, I know, and your perspective, those that are willing to work together, it's very much appreciated, and hopefully eventually we'll bring along some of the other people that are causing more problems than they are bringing solutions. So hopefully we'll get there, but it's definitely frustrating for a lot of people right now. So.
Well, and I'm hoping too that, now we have a new chief at UTPD. We have our interim President Jim Davis. We have Chief Davis at APD, and that executive team. And we have our new city manager. We have ACM Garcia. We have a lot of people with a lot of great experience and knowledge that, like you said, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of stakeholders. SafeHorns isn't the only stakeholder out there. There's other community members that care. We care a lot, and we're loud about it, and we're digging deep trying to do the work. And we want to see positive outcomes and people getting help, getting people off the street. We don't want people to sit in jail forever. If they can be helped, we want them to get that help. If it's mental health, but there's some people that being on the street is not a place where they should be. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really hoping with all this new leadership and new energy that maybe we can move in a more positive direction of collaboration, because honestly, and I tell the students this all the time, the good outnumbers the bad.
Oh, yes.
And we've got to stay focused, being a community and watching out for each other. And maybe a miracle will happen where seeing an impact and justification of spending $65,000 on your own personal safety resonates with being just an average person who's 18 years old, living away from home for the first time, just trying to traverse back and forth and afraid of being murdered, that doesn't have the option to implement those things. What are you going to do for them? And what are you going to do for them before it's too late? And that's the other thing, is making comments of, oh, well, we have a family, we have children. Okay, but what are you doing about it? Mm-hmm. So we have some things in common. What we have in common is we all want to be safe where we live and where we go out in our communities. Many of us are willing to do the work to support law enforcement and our first responders. But people that are doing the crime must be held accountable. And the people with that serious job to make sure that is being done need to be held to the line. And that's the component that we're missing. And it's sad, but I'm eternally optimistic and praying for a miracle.
I love it. You have to see the positive in all of it. And if you lose the hope, then there's nothing worth fighting for. So
absolutely,
you got to keep the faith. You got to keep it up. Got to keep the passion going, and just keep forging ahead. Otherwise, like I said, it'd all be doom and gloom, and that's no fun at all. So
exactly.
We'll keep fighting ahead. Well, thank you for sitting down, for talking. I know we covered a lot, but we appreciate you taking the time and visiting and sharing with us your perspective and everything else that's going on. So I think this was, I enjoyed it. So hopefully it's been good and it'll be productive and lots of good information out there for everyone. But again, I just want to say thank you and taking the time.
Thank you. And we appreciate APD and Commander Smith and Lieutenant Casto and everyone in our Baker sector. Oh, bless you for being our partner and guardians of our community.
Lots of great people out there. We got awesome people all across the department, and we're just grateful to have folks that we can work with and always looking to do that. So collaboration is a great way to move forward.
Absolutely.
But all right, y'all. Well, we appreciate you for tuning in and joining us, and we'll see y'all on the next one.